نحمده ونشكره على نعمائه ونستغفره ونتوب إليه من سيئات أعمالنا ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على رسوله وصفيه سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله الطاهرين وصحبه المنتجبين اللهم صل على Sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. يقول الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان Surah Baqarah verse 185. The month of Ramadan is the month in which the Quran was sent down as a direction for people and a clear sign for guidance and judgment of what is right and what is wrong. Since we are in the month of Ramadan, and month of Ramadan, its importance, significance is linked to the revelation of the Holy Quran. It's a unique characteristics within the month that we need to discuss, inshallah. And this is one of the few issues that you cannot discuss the importance of the month of Ramadan in any of its components, psychological, social, spiritual, without drawing out Quran into the whole conversation. Last night I pointed out that although Muslims, Shias and Sunnis, they may have few differences of opinion regarding, say, the collection of the Quran, or the exact time of revelation, or few other things. But then we all agree on a number of fundamental principles when it comes to Quran, irrespective of how we have our own personal school of thoughts understanding. We all agree that the Holy Quran is to be, it is the literal word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that was revealed to the Holy Prophet. Although there are some Western scholars that they try to claim or assert that no, the Wahy came to the Holy Prophet, but then the Holy Prophet had to use that concept or conceptual understanding of the Wahy and put it in his own language. For Muslims, we consider that is a taboo. We don't accept that. For us, Quran is a verbatim, literal word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And because of that, we consider it to be holy. All the words within the Holy Quran is considered to be holy. And we even touching it without wudu and tahara is not allowed. We consider it to be the ultimate source of divine guidance for living righteously. And if we were to follow its directive, we will have a fulfilling lifestyle. If the Quran for all Muslims is a source of, I said this last night, source of legal and jurisprudential principle. Not a single scholar, they can give any opinion regarding any theological issues without drawing some ideas from the Quran or interpreting the verses in the Holy Quran. We draw out our moral and ethical principles from it. So our ethical and moral principle rests on the revelation and what Quran is. Unlike some what we call in the secular lifestyle, that the moral principle or the ethical principle is a legal matter that is passed by, say, the Congress or the Senate or the two houses. No Muslim doubts any of these concepts and few others. But if we pay so much attention to the Quran and if we hold Quran to be of reverence, why is it that there are at least one verse in the Holy Quran that on the day of judgment, the Holy Prophet complains to Allah that my my people, deserted and abandoned the Holy Quran. In what way this abandonment and desertions take place? To explain this, last night I gave few examples. I outlined few of the meaning regarding mahjur that exists in the Holy Quran. It could be on the spiritual level, that there is no spiritual enrichment with drawing anything from the Holy Quran, which when Quran is left out as a source of a spiritual principle, we lead to the spiritual corruption in our society. Quran not being studied in depthly, which I said last night, that our mental and intellectual engagement with the Quran is absent. We hardly spend any time, parents with the children, to sit down and say, look, you are reciting, say, Surah Qul Huwa Allahu Ahad. Exactly what does it mean? What's the concept within Surah Qul Huwa Allahu Ahad? Or Tawheed, or anything else. So kids would grow up with no intellectual link with the Quran. Not practicing the dictate of the Quran. Quran, remember the hadith from Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullah salam alayhi, when they ask him, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, you are the beacon of light for us, and you are also the shining path that whenever we find ourselves in darkness, we come to you for guidance. But I have one particular question. Why is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ad'uni astajib lakum? You pray and I would respond. But we keep praying again and again and again and again and nothing happens. Amir al-Mu'mineen says that your heart was corrupted due to 8, remember we asked the question, due to 8 different factors. One of the major factors is that you don't follow directive of the Quran and the guidelines of the Quran in your life. You hold the Quran in your hand, but you don't follow the instruction of the Quran. Quran tells you to support justice. We are all silent when it comes to justice. We sometimes even support injustice. Quran says stand up against tyranny. Hardly anybody does that. We're all afraid of our jobs and our this and our that. The idea of that we should rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, supporting haqq has left no friends for me in my life. This is the society that we have. I have an academic background, and I've been following all the universities and their links and everything else. From the moment the Gaza crisis started, they all went under the radar, and nobody wrote anything about Gaza or anything else. Why? Because they were afraid of all the positions. Whether it was, I delivered few lectures in Harvard, and I told these people and other places that they have, they talk about Imam Hussein, even the Shia studies. They talk about Imam Hussein, Ashura. But Imam Hussein left us with the message that Ashura is not purely historical. Ashura is a living concept. Marhum Mutari, rahmatullah alayhi, one of my professors in Tehran, said if Imam Hussein were to be resurrected now, he would point towards Palestine as a new Karbala. But when it comes in our life, none of us say anything. All afraid. They will kick us out of jobs or demote us or something else. Quran, Ma tarakali, Amir al-Mu'mineen says, supporting haqq and justice has left me with no friends whatsoever. So he says that one of the reasons that your dua is not accepted is because all the direction or the guidelines of the Quran is absent from your life. Not practicing the direction. And Quran is not a book just for recitation and then you put it on a shelf to collect dust until next month of Ramadan. It's a book of amal. You need to work according to its instruction. Amal al-salihat, the direction, the guidelines for the salihat and the good deeds come from the Quran. Social behavior, ethical and moral behavior comes from the Quran. At this stage, if we were to ask to understand that how far we are from the Quran, if we were to ask Quran to tell us how Quran thinks about itself, and then start comparing ourselves. Is there anything within the Quran that says, I'm a book to recite me and then put me on the shelf, forget about the rest of it? Quran says that it is a divine revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We all agree on that. إِنَّا أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ كَمَا أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَى نُوحٍ وَالنَّبِيِّينَ مِنْ بَعْدِهِ. We have sent this revelation to you in the same manner that we send revelation to Nuh and all the prophets that came after, Ibrahim, Ismail, Ishaq, Yaqub, etc. وَأَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ الذِّكْرِ. And we gave you the revelation. This Quran is a revelation. Then it says that you hold on to what we have sent you. بالذي أوحي إليك إنك على صراط مستقيم. That you hold to this what Allah has given you, and because you are on the right path. So Quran considers itself a book of divine revelation. Number two, Quran maintains that it is a guideline for all humanity, not just those the believers. أنزل فيه القرآن, the verse that I recited, هدى للناس. Nas doesn't say Muslims, doesn't say Shias, doesn't say Sunnis, doesn't say Christians. Nas. If you have a pure, receptive heart and you approach things impartially, you have nothing but to succumb to the message that Quran brings for you. It's only when biases and partialities come in that we become or some people become resentful to the Quran. Guide for all humanity. Quran asserts that it is unaltered and preserved. We discussed this in our conversation briefly in the light of the question that the young brother asked. إِنَّا نَحْنُ نَزَّلْنَا الذِّكْرَ وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ. We have sent the revelation and we will be its guardians and protector from any deviation or any corruption. Quran, this is how Quran claims of itself. Quran acknowledges the previous scriptures. In Surah Al-Baqarah, around the end of Surah Al-Baqarah, we see that Quran says that what was revealed in the past about Musa, Isa, Ibrahim, etc., is part and parcel of this message. Why? Because it sees itself as the most complete versions of the others. Other books are not available. This thread of Inna Dina Indallah al-Islam, the singular message of submitting to the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that started from Adam and ended with the Prophet of Islam, it runs through all the prophets and all the messages. But there is no other message that comes to be as complete as the one that Quran is bringing for guidance of humanity. So turning away and relying on something else, it becomes problematic. Quran is a miracle. We just, before walking into the room, we were discussing this. In its eloquence, as well as the presentation and everything else. It all challenges the jinn and humans. If you can, even bring us 10 verses, 10 passages that is equal in eloquence and presentation to the Quran. And you cannot do that. So that's a sign of miracle. it says, gather in to produce like of this Quran, and they will not be able to do so. Quran as a source of mercy and healing for balance, Surah Al-Isra. Quran often refers to itself as a clear and undeniable book, which is Surah Dukhan. A reminder for people to reflect on their purposes and signs in Allah and the universe. Never, if you turn the entire verses and chapters of the Quran, go through all the pages, never Quran claims that it's a book to be recited. Yes, it says that you recite it and reflect on it. أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ. Tadabbur, reflection. Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq salawatullah salam alayhi. Somebody comes to him and says, Ya ibn Rasulullah, how should we recite Quran? Should we finish it in one night? Finish it in 2 nights? Finish it in 3 nights? Imam gives the direction. He says, tartil and recitation of Quran without thinking, without tadabbur, without reflection is meaningless. What you need to do is to think. When you read the Quran, and this is what the Imam says, and you come across a verse or a passage that tell us about what happens as a reward for the muttaqeen and faithful, wait, reflect, and ask Allah to make you one of those people. And when you get to the stage where Allah in the Quran, as you recite, Quran is reminding you of the punishment and the wrath on the day of judgment, again wait and ask Allah for forgiveness that you will not be among those people. How many of us, when we recite Quran, do that? As soon as we say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, autopilot, very quickly, half a chapter or even possibly the whole chapter without reflection, and at the end of the month, we finish the entire Quran. What do you remember from the entire Quran? Nothing. Now, never the Holy Quran states that it is about just recitation to be read and to be put on the mantle to collect dust until next year. So when we look at ourselves, the way we treat Quran, Quran considers itself all of the above, and yet the way we treat Quran is just a book that we occasionally, seasonal, we bring it out from the boxes and we possibly read few verses and then put it back until the next season. Never in Quran claims this to be respect for Quran. If we do it this way, then naturally we have deserted and abandoned Quran. If intellectually we are not engaged with the Quran, if we don't know about the guidelines the Quran has for our spiritual and moral living, if we have no clue about social stories, how many of us, we have nearly 25 or 28 names of prophets in the Holy Quran. How many of you remember full exactly what these prophets are, what's their life, and what happened to them? Our children may not know even the 12 Imam, where they are buried and what happened to them and what did they do during their life. Quran is deserted, is abandoned. We only think about material life and then all 9-to-5 jobs, houses, cars, and everything else. And occasionally during the month of Ramadan, and our children have nothing. The next issue, now we are trying to move through the month of Ramadan, and hopefully we talked about the pure heart and how we can change and move from diseased heart into a pure heart and become a person that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves, and we love Allah, as the verse in the Holy Quran says. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu man yartad minkum an dineh fasawfa ya'ti Allah biqawmin yuhibbuhum wa yuhibbuna. Allah subhanahu, if you want to be to deviate from the path, go, that's your choice. But once you do, just a reminder that Allah will bring a group of people that they love Allah and Allah loves them. So what are the conditions, the characteristics of these individuals? That Allah loves them and they love Allah. If we want at the end of the month to be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we need to at least acquire a few of the characteristics and traits of these individuals. Tomorrow night I will elevate and discuss this and shed more light on it. But some of the characteristics that exist when we look through the Quran. Devotion to Allah, absolute sense. Allah is not a spare tire in their life, only going back to Allah when all other things are closed. Righteous behavior, which means no sin, no shortcomings. Integrity in their life. Charitable. Do good deeds, but without boasting about it and being pompous. We have no charity in our life whatsoever. We got to the stage that the people from the center, they say, please help, we have a crisis here that we need to be resolved. Anybody respond? No. We have the story of Habil and Qabil. I believe last year in one of the Khutbatul Jum'ah I talked about this. Habil and Qabil, two characters, both of them sons of Adam. When they have a dispute, Prophet Adam tells them that you have to go to such a place and provide or present a sacrifice before Allah. Whoever sacrifice is accepted by Allah or present some kind of present. And whoever is accepted by Allah becomes the successor to Prophet Adam. They went, both of them. One son goes, being a shepherd, goes through the entire flock that he has and picks the best sheep or the best camel or best animal, bring it to the site. The other one, being a farmer, searches through the land, just a bundle of wheat that nobody else is wanting it, he puts it together and brings it to the site. And naturally, the other one that brought the best for sacrifice was accepted. When it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is how we deal. We choose only the rejected one, a small amount that there is nobody wants it, and we present it to the mosque or to the center. When Allah comes in, we become tight-fisted. We seem to forget whatever we have is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah instructs or commands or calls upon us. Give me some of the things, lend me some of the things that I have given you already. Everything that you have. Remember the days, kids may not remember it, but at least the adults may. When you moved from your country back into here, the first period of time, you had nothing. You had to struggle. Some people worked in odd places just to be able to survive. Now they have become doctors, professional and everything else. You ask them, I have done it, a story of the person who was in the life of Musa. The rich person, he said, come and spend some of this money that Allah has given you on the poor. No, why should I? I earned it using my own power. Charity doesn't exist. The idea that Allah has given us, or the blessing, to share it with others. There is a concept in Islamic economics that makes a distinction between possession and ownership, very eloquently. Quran says, as long as you hoard it in your hand, you simply possess it. As soon as you sniff the last breath, you drop it and it's for somebody else. It's not yours. What you send for the sake of Allah, what you give for the sake of Allah is registered under your name and you become the owner of it in the hereafter. You become Rockefeller. If you don't spend anything for the sake of Allah, you just possess it. It's numbers in the check account that you don't have anything. But if you spend it for the sake of Allah, it is وَقَدِّمُوا لَأَنفُسِكُمْ verse in the Holy Quran. Send forward. Send for yourself in the future that you're going to go and prepare. The benefit that you get from this being charitable is useful for the hereafter. So charity is very critical, that doesn't exist. Good deed without boasting and being pompous. Act justly. When we see injustice, stand up. Be just in your treatment of others yourself. And repent and purify yourself before the time comes. And we talked about Qalb al-Salim. The first step in the purification and tazkiyah is tawbah. And this is the time for it. Allah says, or the hadith says, that Allah has chained the shaitan. It's easier for me now to deal with my nafs al-ammara and the ego, the crisis that I have. It's easier to deal with the sins and shortcomings that I have piled up on my back, let's say during the last 11 months. I'm not going to go even before. This is the time to begin changing. Inshallah, tomorrow I'll start looking at the verses in the Holy Quran and see how the two categories, those who Allah loves and those who Allah doesn't love, are presented in the Holy Quran. And what are the characteristics of one and the traits of the other. Then it becomes clear for us that if you really want to use this month constructively and purify the heart and move somewhere to get closer to Allah, that ultimately is the whole ethos for the heart of pure heart, then acquire few of these positive characteristics and remove some of the negative traits that we have, plenty of them. Inshallah. رَبَّنَا لَا تُؤَاخِذْنَا إِن نَسِينَا أَوْ أَخْطَأْنَا. O Lord, please don't punish us if we were to forget or make mistake, and grant us the privilege that correct ourselves during this month and purify our hearts, and at least starting from Tawbah and repenting. Because if we don't, who knows what is going to happen next. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.